Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, Laura Loomer here has a quite hateful and resentful post that I wanted to dissect here with you. She writes, "Why do Americans need to go out of their way to make Muslims feel welcome?" The deep, puzzling aspect here is that she thinks there are no native-born people who become Muslim. She assumes that the overwhelming majority are all immigrants. Now, even if that will always be the case, you should still be cordial, great manners, and both in Christianity and the Bible and in Islam, hospitality is a great trademark for good, moral, upstanding character. I'm not sure what her particular faith says about hospitality and making the newcomer feel welcome, but in essence, a good human being wants to make some people feel welcome. Hey, welcome to the community. Here's the rundown of how things are. This is where the courthouses are, the civic center, you name it. Check this out. There's these great parks. Just whatever you can to make someone feel like they can make it in your community and that they are like welcome to the country in a sense. So, as an American Muslim, I will love to make my fellow believers feel welcome. And if there's an atheist who comes, I'll be like, hey, welcome to the community. I'm not going to act absurd. Now, if they're a gangbanger or a troublemaker or an OF chick who's, tempting married men, I'm not going to make them feel welcome. But I would lead by example and try to inspire them to do better and be better, and give them dawah when appropriate. She says this is not a Muslim country. So in her view, Christians, atheists, and Jays don't have to be cordial to Muslims since America isn't a Muslim country. How would that work in the reverse? Would she like it if, let's say, Buddhists up in Nepal didn't welcome Jays because they are not a Buddhist? I doubt she would find that helpful. If a Hindu was chilling and one of her people came over, would she want them to fling cow dung at the Jays who are visiting, having some nice tiki masala and mango lassi? She would scream anti-Semitism. So, again, it's always a good sign when someone is respectful and cordial to people when they are new arrivals, until you give them reason to be stern with you and not tolerate bad behavior. She mentions here, we do not need to change our way of life in the U.S. to cater to the backward ideology of Muslims who are actively working to subvert and undermine Western civilization. I love this comment right here because that is the subversion angle and undermining angle is used against her tribe a lot. So she was clever in flipping it back, but it doesn't stick as much. Now notice, we do not need to change our way of life. Oh, really? Is that why birth rates are going down? Is that why young men online are really getting upset about the lack of quality women? Is that why radfems are complaining about what they call systemic misogyny? Think about it. There's way more groups in America who are complaining about the status quo than complimenting it. What do we hear from some of the America First people? Oh, the swamp, the deep state, and others, like there's also boomer cons who say this. Essentially, the uniparty isn't serving the American people. Most of the political parties right now are leading with what they hate about America and that things need to change in our way of life in America. Isn't that interesting that Mrs. Loomer here, Miss Loomer, unmarried woman, is thinking everything's fine for her particular demographic, whereas we see countless women saying, hey, my student debt is too high, I can't afford a home, I can't afford healthcare, I'm scared to have children in this economy. Oh, okay. But Laura Loomer thinks nothing needs to change. So when we got crackheads, I watched a video yesterday of these, on the day before yesterday as well, where two junkies were pummeling each other. And this is a very common thing, and you could almost call it druggy safari, because these videos are quite intriguing where someone has their phone recording as they go through a homeless camp, and then you just see what these homeless people are doing, and when they're high, it is quite shocking what their brains are up to. And you can see why diseases are spread, and you take a stroll through there, you're going to see pit bulls, malnourished, chained up somewhere, you're going to see rats, drug paraphernalia on the ground. Clearly that needs to change. If our country is producing people who no longer want to participate in society, that's a problem. And how many children are reporting as they age how terrible the foster system was towards them, or how they were placed with some really sketchy people when they were adopted and it didn't work out really well. Notice how many people, because their parents were divorced and they couldn't make it work, talk about this trauma inside of them. So America has a culture where we can't keep people married. You look at Hollywood, and you don't see a lot of smart, savvy, decent men who are fathers and don't cheat on their wives and don't lust for other women being put as a sort of archetype. What we usually get is a lot of degeneracy. Quite a lot of degeneracy, and it's been that way for some time. You look at the music, drugs, violence, absurd romanticism. Okay. Further, you look at how many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. How many Americans are in debt. That's a really twisted culture. We have a lot to work on, but Mrs. Laura Loomer says we don't need to change our way of life. It's interesting, in Islam, riba, high interest, is haram. You're declaring war on Allah. Whereas Loomer's tribe, they really maximize that style of banking. And how many women are complaining about the interest on their student loan debts? And you cannot claim bankruptcy on those. Think about that. Okay? Again, medical bankruptcy and student loan debt are preventing many women from having children. Further, hookup culture is causing nihilism and extreme cynicism in both men and women. Clearly, if a country in 2023 had over 1 million abortions, that means we definitely got to change something. Okay? Because if women don't feel safe enough to reproduce and they're not picking good men, and men are not picking good women to reproduce with who want to have their children, deliver their offspring, we got a sort of darkness growing. But Loomer thinks everything's fine. Everything is fine. So, what does she think is backwards about Islam? Oh, women have to be modest? Give charity, zakah, sadaqah? Fast during Ramadan, which disciplines your sexual urges and your gluttony. If you really take a look around and see how much fast food consumption is done in America, and how childhood obesity rates are skyrocketing, as well as diabetes, and that a huge percentage of the American diet is processed foods, we have a big problem, and that should change. Okay? Islam doesn't promote gambling. We see that gambling is putting a lot of people in precarious situations. The funniest part as well is that Squid Game kind of highlights the absurdity of gambling addictions. Song Gi-yoon, player 456, was severely addicted to gambling, and when you are able to look at that and say, hey man, that could have easily been me, and then you see how many people who are podcasters promoting DraftKings and are pushing gambling, you're like, wow. So instead, Islam would encourage us to give to the needy, help the orphan, help the widow, don't gamble. But in American culture, it's, nah, Trump's big beautiful bill, cut food stamps, F those people on food stamps. Trump's big beautiful bill, as he so named it, cut free school lunches for children, and I have seen Magatardian Christians argue against that. Charlie Kirk himself argued against free school lunches. Say what? Yes, I saw the clip. Look it up. Okay? So, Islam also says, don't look down upon a gift, even if it was the hoofs of a sheep. America has a deep addiction to shopping, consumerism. Many blame this on the capitalistic framework that we grow up with. Others would argue it's all about marketing. Some would say it's a mix of multiple factors. Either way, hoarding is a problem in America to the point where a show was made about it. I know many hoarders on my side of my mom's side of the family. And drugs and alcohol have destroyed both sides of my family. If a nation has a people who can't cope with the culture to the point where they must intoxicate themselves, inebriate themselves, put themselves into a coma, essentially, you have something that needs to change about your way of life. Islam commands us to be sober. Notice how veterans in America are offing themselves left and right. Okay? But in Islam, we are told that deleting yourself is haram. You can't do it. There's so many hadiths in Riyadh Salihin Volume 1 and 2, I have playlists, that help us to see how Islam is a religion that strengthens us, that helps us not to be overly materialistic, that tells us to have patience and endurance, and to say, Alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah for everything. That is a potent form for everyone to adopt as their moral compass. To subvert, to undermine Western civilization, she says, okay, let's look at R. Kelly, P. Diddy, right? Harvey Weinstein. Let's look at the Playboy Mansion. That one kind of under. But if you look further at the amount of strip clubs, brothels, massage parlors, OF chicks, some women, right as they turn 18, they are already ready to sell themselves. Whereas Islam says, get married, have children. Islam does not punish men with monogamy. It gives them the choice. You can have 4 wives, 3, 2, you have to take care of them. And if you don't, you'll come up crooked on your side on Judgment Day, but you have the option. Whereas in America, they say, no. Have your one wife, but go see some titties in the strip club. Go, to the Japanese massage parlor, Vietnamese massage parlor, and get you a happy ending. It's fine. As long as your wife doesn't know, it's all good. We'll facilitate that. And if you look further at beauty pageants, women parading themselves in front of married men so that the men can goon at those women in front of their wife, and the wife saying, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. You look at the billboards alluring women. There was even one chick who put her OnlyFans ad on a billboard by a freeway. It's mind-boggling how modern Western civilization focuses so much on sins, things that would be condemned in Christianity and in Islam. Islam is the antidote to Western degeneracy. Western civilization now is not what it was in the 17th century. She writes further, you people have 56 countries. Stop shoving Islam down our throats here in the US, the same way you're doing it in Europe. Islam isn't forced on people. Here, they set up a dawah table, they watch a YouTube video, they know someone who does truck driving who's a Muslim, they see a hijabi in the supermarket, they get curious, have a conversation, bada bing, bada boom, someone converts. Christians are the ones who knock on doors and bother people. That is way more intrusive. Muslims aren't bothering you at your place of residence. Whereas Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons can't stop knocking on people's doors, and I complain about this a lot. That is way more invasive and uninvited. Someone setting up a booth and you consenting to come over is free will, darling. Okay? Not shoving anything down anyone's throats. There is no Sharia law council that's coming and forcing anything upon you. Alright? Muslims are a minority, so how are they forcing anything? Again, she doesn't deal a lot with reality. She just wants to write anything so that she can get the war with Iran. She wants her people to build luxury resorts on the graveyard of Gaza. She wants to dance on the bones of all the children buried under the rubble, the starving animals, you name it. That's what she desires to have as the foundation, the foundational soil for her spa resorts, casinos, all the sins, high-rise luxury apartments. She wants them to be built in soil that has been soaked and crystallized with the blood of the innocents and those who are in deep agony and pain, where the land is just swirling with trauma, with angst, with the laments of the oppressed. This is where she wants to build her paradise. Tells you a lot about her psychology, what she wants for her people, and how she wants to also use more American tax money to get that mission done that she so wants. It's funny, her people are literally putting bullets in people's throats in order to accept them, but she gets mad at someone simply wearing a hijab, something like that. It's quite bizarre. She goes further, I'm not going to respect anyone who openly practices a supremacist ideology that calls for the eradication of all non-Muslims. Oh, that's rich. That's so deeply ironic. Doesn't her tribe call themselves the chosen people? Isn't that weird? To me, if someone walks around saying that they're special because God chose their race above others, there's nothing more supremacist than that. And they're openly stating it to your face. Quite peculiar. And she walks around saying all the time that she wants to eradicate Islam. So she is what she hates. She demands respect. While she pushes her racial supremacy and where she wants her ideology to eradicate Muslims. The deep irony here. It's truly puzzling. She says, I will not respect any supremacist ideology that calls for all non-Muslims. One second. All non-Muslims, she says. No. Every group wants to be the capstone. And there's just that's just a natural order of things. Because who would want to serve falsehood? And if you believe your religion is the truth, you want the truth on top. You don't want the truth to be overrun with falsehood. So when you believe your religion to be true, you want the truth to be on top, the truth to be more visible. You want others to see it, to live by it, and you see your path as the good. And everyone wants to spread the good. If someone believes their religion is true but doesn't want their religion to rule the world, I don't really want to take advice from them at all whatsoever concerning theology or morality, because you just admitted that you're inferior. If you really felt your religion was the truth, you would hope and pray and work towards it being the majority. Now, that doesn't mean you don't just, live your life as best you can according to your religion and mind your own business, but it means that in your heart you're hoping one day you will see others embrace what you have embraced. Peculiar she is. She says, I will not, she says that it's about subjugation and being deleted. Every group has that, in a sense, and except for the Jainists, what are they called? Some sect, Asian Oriental sect of religion. It's like an offshoot of the Buddhists. But notice here, okay? Her people are subjugating and murking kids in Palestine, and she has expressed deep hatred for them, for little children, and she says she will not be forced to feel sorry for them. But she demands respect. Isn't that odd? Pretty odd. She says, I will fight to keep those people out of my country for the sake of preserving Western civilization. Western civilization will be whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees it to be. Mexican civilization has changed over time. The American landscape has changed drastically since the 14th century. And it will continue to change. Whites are having less children. Immigrants from China, India, Latin America are arriving. And that's the way it will be. Things will change. She needs a little bit of the Tao Te Ching, little Lao Tzu, because she thinks she has the power to declare something to be frozen in time, to stand still. She's the type of woman who would bark at the ocean and get mad that it took her sandcastle. Ancient Rome, when you study how it expanded, how it shrunk, the different groups it was in that came and left, and all the treaties, all of it. Things came and went. Brutus and Cassius, Cato, those people took down Caesar and thought that they could stop change. In reality, Augustus took over, change occurred. Cleopatra, Mark Antony, Egypt changed. Look at Egypt today. Look at Rome today. The Vatican has taken over Rome. It's no longer all about Zeus and Aphrodite. You can't prevent that. Change occurred. Look at Greece today. The land of Plato and Aristotle. Mostly just tourist attractions and tzatziki sauce. Nothing really special, except for people who think Greeks made everything. Things will shift, and you have to let it go how it's going to go. But however it unfolds is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed it. She cannot fight really against anything because she can't fight against her own ego. She can't even have mercy for little children, but she thinks she's a savior. Bizarre. Bizarre. She wants to preserve America so that she can milk it. So that she can use American tax dollars to fund her tribe's war. That's what it is. Must preserve the cow to get the cream. That's all it is. A factory farmed America. America will not repeat Europe's mistakes. Tell me, has this woman looked at the history of France and England? There were times where the French and English did not get along. What about during, French Civil War? What about that? France was taken over by atheists. There was a time where Christians were persecuted in France. Funny how she never mentions the guillotine being used in France. The Red Scare. What of the bubonic plague as well? Rats brought that in. It totally changed the demographics of Europe. Things will always change, and that's the way it will always be. Islam is not a mistake. It's the cure. Funny, Laura Loomer warmongers, destabilizes the Middle East. She herself does not enlist. She does not have children. She has no dog in the literal fight. But she will kick back, put on more layers of makeup, keep tweeting with her claw nails, and force the government to snatch up your sons. If she could bring the draft back, oh, she would. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never put a woman like Laura Loomer in the White House. Could you imagine her as a president? Utterly terrifying. You think Hillary Clinton's bad? Put Laura Loomer in the White House. Watch how many of your children she would send to the trenches. Send to be cannon fodder. Send to perish in a hot desert to be fed on by flies as she wears her designer suit. Think about it. She says we will never become a Sharia adherent country again. Why do so many people think they can decide the future? That they have the capacity to control migrations, to control the zeitgeist, the consciousness of the masses. There's a true arrogance in someone saying such a declarative statement. She may have this personal conviction and hope, but she's so blinded by her own conceitedness, her own self-importance, that she says statements as if they are factual. If she was more humble, she would say, I hope. I will strive towards this. She would even invoke her maker. But notice, we will. Not God wills. We will. Peculiar. Why can't you just be proud to be an American, she says. That's interesting. We have young men feeling left out of the dating market because they don't have enough money. You have women who don't want to have children. They're anti-natalist. You have men some men rather, saying it's a duty to give the nation children, and women saying, no, this isn't the Handmaid's Tale. We will not give you children. Why do so many women of the liberal spectrum, they look at the Handmaid's Tale and say, I resonate with this. I will not use my womb to give the nation more human beings who they can mistreat, who they can deny health care towards. People look around and say, look at the pollution. Look how your tax dollars are going to a foreign war in a foreign nation, a small nation that sucks up billions, while we get dirt kicked in our face and say no free school lunches for your kids. Trump's big beautiful bill cut free school lunches. But the nation you're giving this money to, they get free health care. But you? No, you don't get free health care. Which led to what? The adoration of Luigi Mangione. Why did so many Americans resonate with the Luigi Mangione? It was a class phenomenon. The wealthy people like PBD and those who have great health care. Those who don't suffer with watching their loved ones not get the care they need. They don't cry over bills. They don't itch their scalp over and over and leave bare spots because these bills are piling up for cancer treatments and dental problems. They didn't understand why so many people felt that was a cathartic moment where a CEO who denied people life-saving procedures and necessary prescriptions, they just couldn't understand why people would be happy that such a fat cat was taken down. The only thing they could come up with was he's a father. Yet, countless people realized they watched their father die because they couldn't get the medical treatment they needed. Patriotism has to be a two-way street. You can't be proud of something that hates you, that doesn't nurture you, that makes it harder for your kids to get a home. Nations rise and fall. You're not, as I put it, desire cannot be negotiated. Love cannot be forced. We are told this, right, growing up. The people will not love a government who despises them, who mistreats them. Why do revolutions happen in the first place? Because they are dissatisfied. And if you are dissatisfied, you cannot necessarily be proud. You can be proud of the trees, the beauty, the wildlife, the biodiversity, the wondrous coastal lines. So much. But when it comes to the government, well, that's quite a different story. She writes, "Why can't you just be proud to be an American? This sounds like an abusive girlfriend. Why can't you just be proud of me the way I am? Why do I need to change for you?" Imagine how many men have heard this from their wife. "Why can't you just be proud of me? Honey, please, can you not get drunk and yell in the Christmas party? Why can't you just accept me the way I am?" You see? When you put it like that. No, people don't have to be proud of a trash pile. They don't have to be proud of a corrupt government. Loving the landscape, the topography, the geography, the cuisine, well, that's fine. The wildlife, you name it. The national parks. But is America the government, or is it the soil and the people? This is a very deep question. Because when you wave the flag, you're also waving the flag that represents the government. I am not proud of America under Trump, nor was I under Biden, nor Obama or Bush. I don't even know if there ever will be a president who will make me feel proud. I'm thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I live in a place where there's beautiful trees, nice ocean, and the Kaiser Permanente hospital. You know, there's some things like that. But again, some countries have it better, some have it worse. But being proud, pride before the fall, that's a whole nother question. She contends that Muslims have a problem, that they need to decide if they're Muslims first or America first. Muslim first. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes before all things. Nothing can happen against His will or without His will. See, Christians are very confused individuals. They put a lot of secular policies above what the Bible commands. I couldn't imagine how confusing that would be, where you don't know who your allegiance should be to. And you can see this demonstrated by how they treat migrants from Latin America. How they joke about them being rounded up for being illegal. They say, this is a Christian country. A white Christian country. So what do? Send the Gestapo to raid cornfields, to go to the meatpacking centers, to go to Home Depots, and just chase people down, put that boot right on the back of their neck, and then watch Timcast and PBD and clap like little sea lions as their fellows are being oppressed by the secular government. It's quite different, whereas I know, as the wildebeest move, the monarch butterflies fly, as the Canadian geese soar about, People will move. Immigration is an occurrence that frees us from oppressive regimes, oppressive governments, and destabilized regions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a very vast earth. So if one place we live isn't doing so well, we can hop on a boat and leave. Sayonara. We need not go down with the ship every time. Some should, some could, some won't, some shouldn't. Again, we have rights towards our fellow believers, and we have a framework that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And you can't serve people who hate your existence and who despise the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his maker. Again, what does it even mean to be American in 2025 is a very serious and deeply philosophical question. Furthermore, she writes, Muslim values are incompatible with the values in the U.S. Constitution. What about, is the U.S. Constitution consistent with the Talmud? She's often spoken in ways that violate the First Amendment and even the Second Amendment. She has said that she wants Trump to be dictatorial. Is that what George Washington would have wanted? Is that what John Adams would have wanted? Benjamin Franklin? James Madison? John Jay? No. She's just someone who uses these buzz phrases, but her entire rhetoric script over time bears a consistent pattern of hyper-contradiction. Further, she writes, Muslims view the Quran as their constitution. We can't destroy our founding values to give space to Sharia supremacy. Tell me, let's gotta put it in a very special way. When it comes to religious dogma, how could you throw it under the bus, discard it like toilet paper, for sort of laws written by man? You're on this planet, floating in space, right? You look out at the vast void, you see the miraculousness of life, you realize we humans try our best to create a government, but if you've been given a mandate from the mighty and sublime to behave and conduct yourself in a certain way in order to achieve earthly and success in the hereafter, you have to make sure that you don't allow people to lead you astray. And if a secular government becomes corrupt, or any government for that matter, and they cause you to have disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that jeopardizes your hereafter. And if people obey Islam, things become better. Less gambling, less prostitution, less broken homes, more respect for women, more respect for modesty, more respect for mothers, more respect for masculinity, more patriarchal supremacy. That's a good thing. Occultists scouring and hiding in the catacombs where they belong. Back to the tunnels for them. She goes on further to declare, if you don't like that, there are 56 other countries you can move to where Sharia supremacy is tolerated. Well, the good part is, America has a form of democracy, which means people can utilize that system to make things better for Muslims. And there's nothing she can do about it. Nothing at all. Because the Constitution allows religious freedom. And the ability for people to assemble how they so will. As long as they're not harming anybody else. And we see that she's upset with what Shankir said, where Muslims are going through a civil rights struggle, and they want to be treated as humans, and that there's a one-sidedness with anti-Semitism. So think about that. What triggered her about Shank's post, I think we know. She only wants her group to be protected. See, does she say anything about don't insult Jesus, peace be upon him? but she supports insulting the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's quite peculiar, her inconsistencies and her rhetoric. She wants her group to never be insulted, while she insults everyone else. She has made quite a few enemies, and the sky is perpetually falling in her mind. She's not even allowed to have a firearm because she is so medically unstable. She was institutionalized by her father. A lot of people don't realize that. She's quite unhinged. She is what you would call a spinster. She's past her prime. No husband in sight. Large body count. Cares about money and fame only. No cute, adorable children running around. Nope. She's that Hansel and Gretel type of a woman. She's gonna be in the woods, being weird. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from such women. Islam will fix so many ills in America, and it makes the best type of men, and calls women to be more than vapid and vain egomaniacs. The women of Palestine are so much stronger than Laura Loomer. They're so remarkable. Maybe that's why she envies them so and has to consistently try to slander them. A very demented soul.